So today's recipe, I'm gonna make a individual size tater tot crusted meatloaf. This was an idea I worked on a ton when I was writing my tater tot cookbook, but I could never get it right. And for some reason, the idea popped into my head the other day, and I thought, if I make these individual size, maybe I can actually get it to work. The original trouble with it was that I was trying to make it like full size, like a huge meatloaf, and it just was always crumbling, and when I was cutting it, the tater tots would just kind of fall apart. So the individual size is really what's gonna help it hold together and become like a nice solid meatloaf. We're starting out the tater tots the way I would always start out any tater tot recipe, and this is something I developed. It took me a while to get it right, but I cut the potatoes into large chunks and cook them super high heat so that they get a little brown on the edges, but remain a little undercooked in the center. When they fully cool, you can then pulse them in a food processor and they get that perfect fleck sort of texture the way you should have tater tots. Some people, they use shredded potatoes or even mashed potatoes for tater tots, and I don't think they really taste like true tater tots at that point. Now, I added egg and some potato flakes and breadcrumbs to this. If I was just making tater tots, I wouldn't do that step, but because I really want this to stick and adhere and not fall apart, I'm using those as a little bit of insurance. For the meatloaf mixture, we just have some pork, some beef, some eggs, some seasonings, breadcrumbs, as well as the potato flakes again. And I'm making these individual size. And another thing I did differently to really help this be secure is I added flour and eggs to the outside of the meatloaf. It was sort of almost as if I was gonna deep fry it. And that really, really helped the tater tots seal to the outside of the meatloaf. You may have noticed I put a liquid seasoning in there. That's just the glaze for the meatloaf. And that's just gonna be ketchup, chipotle, and some honey and mustard. So after we bake this on a super high heat for about 40 minutes, glaze it, put it back in for another 20, and then it's perfectly ready to cook and eat. I was thrilled with how these came out. I thought they were super delicious, and the tater tots did taste like tater tots, didn't fall apart, and really stuck themselves to the outside of the meatloaf perfectly.